Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the rising cost of college in the United States and the effects that we are seeing with it. Now, overall, since 1980, college tuition has went up about 1,200%. That is right, guys, around 1,200% is the increase in 43 years that we have seen of the cost of education. In that same time frame, however, the consumer price index, the change of all items, was around 230%. So what is the logic and the reason between or before the 5x increase when it comes to the college cost? First of all, let's go ahead and break this down a little bit, guys. Now, back in 1980, it was around $1,800 for a public education at a university. So to go to college, it was a little less than $2,000. Fast forward our 40 years to 2020, it rose to about $9,400. So pretty good there. That is a pretty decent increase over 40 years. But the private institutions are really the driving force. So back in 1980, it was roughly $10,000 to get a four-year education. Now 2020, it is around $35,000. So public education went up slightly. The private institutions went up dramatically. I mean, they're almost 3.5% or 3.5 times the cost. Now, CPI during that time, when you look at the college and fees, it went up roughly 1,200% when you look at private institutions and the costs. Now, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the highest year-over-year college increase was recorded in June of 82 at 14%. However, during that time, inflation was roughly 6%. On the other hand, November of 2020, which we know was halfway or the beginning stages, a couple months into the pandemic, we saw the lowest year-over-year change in the average cost of college, 0.6%, mainly because of the shift to online classes because of COVID. Now, some schools started offering discounts, started offering free schools for the public, smaller local institutions. Even the community colleges around here do offer free tuition for people who want to go. And guess what? People are still not going, guys. It's kind of crazy that they're offering a free education and we are still not seeing a lot of people going to school within those institutions. So why is the cost on the rise? Couple big things, guys. Decrease in state funding. So state funding per student fell from $8,800 to $82. So they lost about $600 per student, while the share of tuition in college revenues has increased. Now, number two is the increase in demand. The demand for college education has increased over time. Between 2000 and 2018, graduate enrollment went up about 26%. So a lot more people are going to school and getting those undergraduate educations. That is not graduate degrees. Remember, that is your four-year education, and the increase in federal aid. So as the education has gotten more expensive, they have actually went and essentially let you borrow more money. So it's kind of crazy because they're putting you in a really, really bad situation. So according to the study, the New York Fed, every $1 of subsidized federal loans increased college tuition by 60 cents. The student loan debt has doubled since 2008. That is right, guys. Student loan debt has doubled since 2008. Now think about that. That is 15 years ago. 15 years ago, we have literally doubled the amount of student debt that we are borrowing for the government. So furthermore, the cost of providing education, institutional expenditures have escalated greatly. We know rent is super high right now. These include instruction, student services, administrative, operating, maintenance, HR, with student debt at very unprecedented levels and going on with the public demand. The rising cost of education, they do not see leveling off anytime soon, which again is kind of crazy according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So what happens because of this, guys? So what we're seeing and what we've studied a little bit is kind of the 10-year yield curve. So when you are taking out student loans, most of the repayments for student loans are over a 10-year period. Now, depending on the amount that you do have in student loans, let's say you're taking out 40, 50, 60, even $100,000 in student loans, the government owns and backs those student loans, and they charge an exorbitant amount. And this is kind of my opinion. They charge an exorbitant amount. Most of the student loans that we're seeing are roughly 7.8%. So they are running the juice on almost 8% of debt that college students are having. And of course, during college, if you're not working, if you're focused on your studies, on your education, and not working, you are going to have multiple years, usually for some people, 5, 6, whatever it may be. But during that time, that 8% meter is running on those student loan debts. So from the time you start to the time that you complete, again, you could have 50, 70, $100,000 in student loan debt, which then it starts the repayment 6 months after graduation. It goes out of deferment if you're no longer in school, and it starts the repayment phase. At that point, guys, it has been running for usually 4.5, 5 years, what you borrowed at that 8%, which means that monthly liability for the next 10 years is going to be there, guys. This is why I stress getting grants, getting scholarships, getting funding literally anywhere you can to really cut down, especially in the early years, the price of education, trying to cover any of the costs, trying to cover the expenses. Because again, the juice is running on that. The interest rates are running on that, and it gets very, very expensive very fast, and it can accumulate. So once you get to the point of graduating, now you have a large chunk of a monthly liability that is set aside for that student loan repayment. For some of us, a lot of people do the income-based repayment. A lot of people do some of the hopefully tuition forgiveness that the government's trying to pass through the Supreme Court. But when you get to that point of having a monthly liability, if it's $300, $500, $700, whatever it may be, even in a job for the next 10 years, this is where the curve comes in, guys. With the rising cost of college education, we are seeing people starting families later in life. We are seeing people's purchasing homes later in life. Home values have continued to increase, rates increase. If you're looking to move out of your parents' house, for a majority of people, financially, they cannot afford it. Being a recent grad, a lot of people, again, cannot afford rent, cannot afford housing, cannot afford to get into a mortgage or qualify even for a mortgage in that point because of the alarming amount of student loan debts that we have. Now, could they curve it a little bit? Could they make it a little bit different? Absolutely, guys. So if they, let's say, started the deferment a little bit earlier, or if, in my opinion, guys, again, if the rates were a little bit lower while you're in school, let's say even during school, it was 2%. When you finish school, let's say it goes up to the regular percent, whatever it may be, the 7.8, is you would not have years of the money just running that 7.8% interest rate on money that you're borrowing, which again, you get out of school, let's say you borrowed 70,000, now you owe 95,000 because of the 25K that added on over the last couple of years at that 8%. It makes a big difference when you look financially, when you're getting out of school and what you're actually going to be doing. And also, if you can find a job, guys. A lot of people are coming out of school without the opportunity, or they're not able to find a job. Sorry, guys. So that'll do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the rising costs of college education. And